Okay, Lewis Pope, we are live. How's it going, sir?
Howdy, Stetson. Going great.
Yeah, awesome. We're just getting started here. We were having a little green room chats about various things, but today, Lewis, we were talking about CMMC, which is what is CMMC? Maybe we can define that really quick, and then we'll do intros.
Okay, so CMMC, just for everybody that's no clue what it is, it's the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. It is just the unified framework by which the Department of Defense expects federal contractors to adhere by pretty much from this point going forward. It's something that's been in the works for a couple of years. There's been a lot of changes, uncertainty, changes in deadlines, but pretty much at this point, just know if you are a federal prime contractor or a subcontractor, CMMC is going to be part of your ability to bid on and win federal contracts.
All right, awesome. I've done this a little bit backwards. We're going to hook the topic first, and then we'll intro. But why is CMMC important right now?
So right now it's really important because, well, stuff's been finalized. There's a lot of fluctuations, but now everything's pretty much set in stone at this point. So if you are a federal contractor or subcontractor that's working in defense industrial base, your contracts, the next time you see those contracts come up, they're going to have language in them that says you must be able to execute and adhere to CMMC level 1, level 2, or level 3 in order to get this contract. If you cannot do that, you cannot bid on this contract. We're not even going to bother giving you the opportunity in some cases. So it is a business impactor way beyond most security compliances. Most security compliances, there's like, some of them are pseudo voluntary. Some of them are, there's assessments, but you just, give your word and you hope nothing ever happens and you have to be investigated for it. But CMMC is one of those, no, you can't prove this. You don't get the business. You don't get the contract. Okay. And of course, that means no new contracts, but also the threat to existing contracts. You may be seeing small businesses lose their federal contracts because of it.
All right, right on. That's kind of the hook for folks. If people are joining us live, I put a little banner here, but drop your questions about CMMC, Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, in the chat here, and we'll try to answer live. But Lewis, yeah, as I said, we'll go a little backwards. Why don't we do intros now for folks that haven't joined us on these streams before? Who are you and what are you up to?
So I'm Lewis Pope. I'm one of the head nerds over at Enable. We're a team of educators and advocates, subject matter experts. We're all been in the managed services space for many years in different roles. I come from an MSP myself, started out as a bench technician, worked my way up over the years, and just focused on security and cybersecurity as I evolved and moved from one position to one business to the other. And that's gotten me now at Enable as the head nerd of security. Compliance, best practices, practical implementation of security controls. I help our partners with that challenge, with those tasks.
Perfect. And folks probably know me. My name is Stetson Blake, founder of This Is an IT Support Group. But yeah, we've had some great conversations with Lewis in the past. And recently we've been doing just kind of like some security update chats, which I've really enjoyed. Just basically what's been happening in the past month, like what are the top headlines. So be sure to watch out and join us for those. That's always a fun live interactive session. But Lewis, let's get deeper on cybersecurity maturity model certification. We talked a little about what it is and why we should care. Can we go a little bit into kind of the history, like where did this thing come from and how did it evolve into what it is today?
Okay, so this is U.S. centric, and it kind of comes out of the fallout and the changes in the American security apparatus post 9/11. There was, just this continual increase in awareness and knowledge that we're not well defended on the cybersecurity front. Many a well-known issue for federal contractors, and for a very long time, was they're saying one thing and doing another. And the feds knew it. The feds knew that you're saying you're doing all these good security controls and these practices, but we know you're really not. We've got no way of proving it. You've got no real good way of attesting to it and everything. So there was just this quiet understanding for a really long time. But post 9/11, that couldn't stand anymore. The thought process has changed. It's like, no, we need you to prove it now. If you are going to be part of the defense industrial base, if you're going to be supplying products or services to the U.S. federal government, DoD specifically, then we need some mechanism, some scheme by which you can attest and verify you're doing what you should be doing around cybersecurity, and more specifically around the protection of classified, controlled, unclassified information and financial information, or financial contracts information, because those things were what they were worried about. They were worried about, they weren't worried about the top secret plans for the F-35. They, yes, they were, but what they were really worried about was the local the local concrete pouring company that has a contract to pour pads on a military base for new buildings. No, that's not classified information. What the ratio of the concrete is they're pouring isn't classified information, but it's controlled information. And they needed a way to get everybody even at that lowest level to start taking it seriously, start treating this type of information as what it really represents, the ability for foreign interests, foreign threat actors to find this information and take advantage of it in some way, shape, or form. So the CMMC came out of the need to address that. First, there was the NIST 800-171 framework that came out in late 2010s, which was about, how to handle CUI and FCI in federal systems. But that was voluntary. That was still back in this is the stuff you should be doing, but we have no mechanism by which to enforce you to do it. The CMMC was then the way of saying, okay, all this stuff we're saying you should be doing in this NIST 800-171 around CUI, FCI, other general cybersecurity, we need a mechanism to prove it now. And that was CMMC. You now have to, there's CMMC level 1, 2, and 3. And 2 and 3 levels are no longer self-assessments. You have to engage with somebody else to assess you and certify you as being in compliance with it.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. Curious on these levels, what's the difference? Why do those exist, and what's kind of the difference other than this self-assessment need, I guess?
So it's risk profiling. It's just what kind of business are you? What kind of controlled, unclassified information and what kind of contracts do you hold? That's going to dictate which level of CMMC is going to be asked for in the federal contract. The federal contract, that is what's going to tell you, to bid on and win this contract, we need you to be CMMC level 2 or level 1. Not exactly how the language is, but that's what the intent is. And then
can I ask really quickly, is 1 the highest, or is 3 the highest?
3 is the highest.
Okay, so that's the most kind of secured one.
Yep. So level 1 is basics. It's basic safeguarding. It doesn't even involve CUI or FCI, because not every business that has a contract with the Defense Department or DoD or DIB, Defense Industrial Base, not every one of them is actually going to be handling CUI or FCI. So it's kind of just a do basics, do basic cybersecurity. It's only 17 kind of practices that they want you to attest to, and it's self-attested. Yes, we're doing this. Great, cool. Here's the contract. Really loosely. Level 2 is saying, well, no, we need you to now take things more seriously, because this contract is going to involve controlled unclassified information. It's going to control, it's going to involve plans. It's going to involve language. It's going to involve some drawings. It's going to involve receipts for purchase. It's going to involve something that makes us say, we need you to really take the security and the protection of this information more seriously. We need you to align to 110 of the controls that are in the NIST 800-171 framework. And we're going to need you to get through a third-party assessment.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm just doing some research kind of the background here. We have this FCI thing, which is, as I understand, information that might be provided by government or maybe a contractor that's not intended for public release. And then the other one was CUI,
controlled unclassified information.
Okay, gotcha. And then the 3 levels we talked about a little bit. Level 1 sounds like it's kind of the most basic things. They recommend you implement certain practices. Level 2 is a little higher, and level 3 is like really sensitive data. I'm just, as I do some research here, level 3 might be doing things like active threat hunting, continuous monitoring. Then level 2 looks like a little bit less. You're doing things like encrypting CUI at rest and in transit, doing risk assessments. And then level 1 sounds like absolute basics, like strong passwords, limiting access to systems. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. The way I kind of, the way I explain it on like capabilities and expectations for anybody that says, hey, can I go and pursue CMMC as an opportunity? It's like, if you're a normal modern MSP, you're probably already doing level 1. That's nothing out of the realm for you probably to do today with your current tooling, current capabilities. But level 2 is where you start, the playing field starts getting uneven real fast at that point, because you're going to be, honestly, you're going to probably be closer to an MSSP than a regular MSP to deliver into level 2. And level 3 is almost you're an MSP, give it up. You don't need to pursue level 3s. I'm not saying that there aren't some MSPs or some master MSPs out there that aren't doing this and can handle it. They are the exception, though.
Yeah, Lewis, one area I want to ask about is kind of how MSPs fit into this. So I see one angle of, you're an MSP or maybe MSSP, and your clients are government contractors, and you work on the implementation side. Mm-hmm. And then another side, I guess, maybe you're an MSP that is taking contracts, and you yourself have to be, CMMC certified. Is that right? Is that a good distinction?
Right. Yeah. So there was for a very long time, there was the argument and the discussion going back and forth in the space of who needs to be compliant. If I'm an MSP providing services to somebody that is subject to this, do I have to satisfy the same things? Do I have to, and kind of this, level 1, again, you as an MSP, you're probably satisfying those. Level 2, though, for your clients, you're an MSP, you've got a client. Either they fully understand and know, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do about CMMC, or they don't. For you as an MSP, there's I need to assess my client base and figure out who this is going to impact is the first thing to do. Then the next thing to figure out is, okay, half of my clients that this could potentially impact haven't done jack about this. They don't even know how, why, or where, or when, or through what methods they are marking their CUI information as they are supposed to. So, you know what? They're probably in high danger of losing contracts coming up. What does that represent to me? Because, they go out of business, I've lost a contract. So there's that there's that part of the concern for it. And then the other is, well, they are asking questions. They are trying to prepare for this. They don't want to lose their contract opportunity. So they're willing to spend money on this. For the MSPs, that's your opportunity to come in and help them build out their compliance program, build out their operational and their security capabilities in alignment with what's being asked for out of CMMC 2. You could even have the opportunity for becoming assessors, getting certifications, becoming a practitioner. There's opportunities for you to, as an MSP, maybe you don't even want to do any of the work, but you want somebody on your team to go get their certification for being an assessor or for a practitioner. And you as an MSP, again, you don't do any work. There's somebody on your team has the certification and they go advise. That's one path. Or again, you're managing the experience. So you as the MSP engage on behalf of your client with another assessor, with a C3PAO, which is a certified third-party auditing organization. And you're the technical specialist in the room helping them execute on what that assessor is telling them they need to do. So there's different places for MSPs to exist in this CMMC ecosystem, and depending on your skills, your staffing, some of these options are going to be more attractive than others.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks for covering that distinction. Yeah, I think it's always interesting how there's kind of these like either regulatory or kind of paradigm shifting opportunities for businesses or MSPs to go after, new business, perhaps grow their own or find new opportunity. I do want to get to a few questions here from Tim Ship. His first one was, if using public cloud, can you only use a Gov Cloud tenant, or can you use commercial as well to hold CUI?
CUI, no, commercial is a no-go for CUI as far as if you read it by the books. If it is CUI, it needs to be in a secure enclave. If that enclave is going to be on a public cloud service, then it needs to be in a GCC. It may not need to be it doesn't have to be in GCC High or the AWS Cloud High equivalent. Maybe the date, it's low level CUI. And it doesn't require high impact in hosting environments. But yeah, no, it has to, reading it by the book, it is supposed to stay out of public commercial cloud.
Gotcha.
And that's how do I get around that one is well, don't use public cloud services. Go colo, or set it up in the client's environment and keep it local and do not expose it to the cloud. And that's one of the things that is kind of making this so much of a challenge for MSPs. Is a lot of this, you can't do it the way you would want to do it as an MSP. We're not going to be able to do a lot of these things at scale in our MSP friendly way. We kind of have to move back to enclaves and silos and managing a Microsoft tenancy fully self-contained without using any RMM tools or remote access tools or anything else. It's all in the same network, in the same location. Everything stays there and it does not escape. We're getting down into, even sometimes, if I don't want to spend too much time going down the rabbit hole of ITAR, but if there's ITAR concerns, well, you're going to have air-gapped systems. You're going to have systems that cannot be connected to, the cloud. And that's going to make it harder for you to manage as an MSP. So there's a cascading set of, things that happen because of that simple thing of CUI cannot be in public commercial cloud.
All right. Right on. Thanks, Tim. And we have a follow-up from Tim. Regarding subcontractors, is there a covered entity like in the HIPAA compliance umbrella?
Yeah. So under HIPAA compliance, you have the BAs or the BAAs, the business associate agreements and everything, and there's other things that can pull you in with CMMC. There's the concept of prime contractors and subcontractors. The prime contractor is who holds the contract with the government. Now, that prime contractor might subcontract some of the things that need to be done to deliver that contract to other businesses. Chances are, as an MSP, you're engaging with those subcontractors, not the prime. And whenever you're engaging with those subs, well, okay, are those subs having to adhere to level 1 or level 2 or level 3? If they're having to adhere to level 1, again, you can kind of treat them with just best practices of what you're probably already doing, and you wouldn't have to change much about how you do things. But if they're level 2, what are you doing? What do you have access to? Are you running a remote access tool, whether it's an RMM or a remote desktop or anything else? You have access to an endpoint that processes or stores CUI. You got to adhere to everything too. Your processes and procedures also have to be up to snuff for level 2, and you'll depending on contract, you will also have to go through an assessment and receive your level 2 certification.
Perfect. Hopefully that helps, Tim. And thanks for dropping in the comments. If other viewers are here, you can drop a comment and we can hit show and kind of field it live. But Lewis, let's keep rolling a little bit here. So we've gone kind of into some of the levels of CMMC, what it is, and history. Curious, are there deadlines that MSPs need to be aware of as this becomes more required, I guess?
Yeah. So whenever you're dealing with contracts and requests for proposals, level 1 self-attestment, that's already on the board now. That's been on the board for a while, actually. The language for that has already been in contract bids for, I think, more than a year or two now. But the full implementation, well, I don't want to say full implementation, but everything is kind of written down and we know what's going to be required. It was November 30th of last year. So November 30th, 2025, that's at the point at which all new DoD contracts that will require level 1 and level 2, that language should have been started showing up, which means your ability to either show that you've already had the level 2 assessment and certification done, or that you're in an active process of it and you can show meaningful advancement. I forgot what the term is for it, but we've already started the process. We've had an assessment. We've defined our gaps and what we need to make up for, and here's our plan for how we're going to cover those gaps. Cool. There's still contracts for you to bid on now. But if you've not started any of that as a business, you're going to start coming up against hard stops in your ability to bid for contracts. Full implementation, so the rest of third-party assessments and everything being in place and running, no longer any deferments or anything, is supposed to be mid-2026, where again, everything's finalized, and this is the way everybody has to, respond and adhere to. And that's been a challenge on setting that deadlines, because that deadline of, all right, everybody has to do this, has changed multiple times. And because that deadline has changed multiple times, a lot of businesses, they got trained to, it's always going to be in the future. It's always going to be another year or another 2 years away. Now it's in a position of no, there's no more deferments. This is going to show up in the language. It's going to show up in contracts. And if you've not done anything to prepare for it, you're behind, basically, at this point.
All right. Yeah, we've covered a lot. Tim had just 2 here, SSPs and show progress. Not sure.
Yeah, show progress is what I was talking about a while ago about, you have to be able to show that if you already haven't gone through and received the third-party assessment and certification, you have to show that, okay, I'm engaged with a C3PAO or somebody else, and we're working through the process. And SSPs are, oh man, where is this?
The acronyms are killing me. C3PAO, that's almost C3PO.
Yeah, SSPs are system security. No, oh man, that one's going to get me.
Is it system security plan?
Yeah, system security plan. Yeah,
okay.
Because you have to have an SSP. Like, I'm going to pick on ourselves here, or on Enable. Like, if you were going to take and self-host in Central for the purposes of CMMC, you would need an SSP around your implementation of N-Central that has all of the controls, the configurations, the uses, the permissions, the permissive use, everything.
Gotcha. Okay, I dropped a link there in chat. I just Googled CMMC
SSP. Yeah, and you're going to wind up, and this is, just as a peek behind the curtain in the amount of documentation you're going to have to get used to doing. Everything, every system, every functional system, every ancillary system is going to need an SSP defined with it if it is going to be in an environment that needs to adhere to level 2. You're going to have it. So, and usually your SSPs are also, a lot of people, I don't want to say cheat, but you got to start somewhere. And a lot of people use STIGs to start their SSPs.
Okay, what is a STIG?
So STIG is one of those acronyms that I have long forgotten what in the world the acronym actually means. But a STIG is DOD, I don't want to say recommendations, but DOD proclamations on this kind of system, this OS, this version should be configured this way.
Okay, looks like I got the backup. Security Technical Implementation Guide. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, how did you set up and configure this? Do it this way.
All right. So just another piece of documentation, I suppose. That's
a piece of documentation that's going to dictate how you set up things in the environment. Yeah.
Okay. So MSPs can foresee much paperwork and learning many acronyms.
This is your so like an MS. So if you're an MSP and or not even an MSP, you're just you're looking in this thing and is there an opportunity here for me? If you're not already comfortable with kind of like vCISO and compliance as a service, this is like the worst combination of both of those things of what you have to do, the capabilities you're going to need, the conversations you're going to have with clients, the convincing and the budget conversations and the projections and the risk management conversations and building and maintaining a risk register. Those are all things that come with this. And if you already don't have those capabilities in your portfolio because of the employees you have or other contracts and support contracts you have, it's a lot because those types of capabilities are going to be required for this as well.
Okay, right on. Just another reminder, if you are viewing live, be sure to drop some comments and we can try and cover them. Lewis, another question I had is this thing about the Cyber AB. What is that and how does it fit into the CMMC ecosystem?
Okay, so Cyber AB is the organization. It's the entity that has been given the mandate of you're responsible for execution, assessments, training and verifying the assessment companies and the handling the certifications. And, they're, I don't want to say like they're a CompTIA or an ISC squared, but that's kind of their function. They're there to be the authoritative source for certifications and the compliance work.
Gotcha.
So
This is the AB is accreditation body. Is that right?
yeah.
Okay. So they kind of hang out and make sure that they oversee the CMMC ecosystem for the DoD, and sounds like they do maybe some training and authorization and stuff like that.
So that's if you're looking at this, and depending, we have a diverse audience on these sessions. So if you're, an engineer, if you're a technician, if you're help desk, and you're like planning out for the future, and we always get the ask, which certifications should I get? What's my path that I should be exploring for advancement? It's not a bad opportunity. Go to Cyber AB, look for their certifications, and there are some individual certifications that you can get. Some now, does that tie directly into a benefit for you where you currently are? Maybe not. Are you prepping yourself for the future? Maybe, but it's another certification that is a little bit more meaningful. Whenever you get other certifications, you get your SSCP, your System Security Certified Practitioner, or you get your Network Plus, or you get your MSNCA, whatever it is. You get those, and I don't want to say they're generic, but they're generic. They're like, yeah, you got some basic knowledge. This is you get to participate in a very specific regulated ecosystem. Without this, you don't get to participate in that very specific regulated ecosystem. So it can be back it up with experience and knowledge and gain the certifications, makes you an attractive target potentially in the future.
Yeah, Lewis, I think it's interesting, like reading about all these different accreditations and certifications and things. Honestly, I think it's a little bit dry and like in the weeds. I think a lot of people feel that way too. But I'll say I think that's kind of a moat, right? For competitive, just there might be that piece of like not a lot of people understand it, and not a lot of people are very interested. It's not a very sexy topic, but totally a very, very, very necessary one. I'm glad we have it, but I'm glad I'm not doing it. Any thoughts or viewpoints there?
Well, yeah, and it is a very dry, non-exciting side of things with this, but take advantage of that. It's the field is not going to be saturated. There is a current issue, and it's been a persistent issue, and it's actually one of the reasons why it's taken CMMC implementation so long to be finalized, is there was simply not enough assessors. There were not enough C3PAOs to handle everything. Even today, it is a problem. There is literally not enough people with certifications. There are not enough organizations with the operating in the space to handle the volume of work.
Sure.
So
that's opportunity. If there's literally a vacuum,
absolutely an opportunity. Now, how does that pan out? What kind of opportunities does that represent for you as an individual versus for you as an MSP is going to be highly different.
Sure.
As an individual, tons of employment opportunities, tons of opportunities for you to have a very specific specialization, back this up with some other DoD approved certifications, and you'd be in a pretty good space. But as an MSP, you'd have to more pursue we're going to be a registered provider organization, or we're going to become a C3PAO so we can conduct the official assessments, or there's all kinds of ways to approach it. Do I want to do the work and be hired to do the work by a company that needs somebody to do it for them? Do I want to build out my MSP to do assessments? Do I want to build out my MSP to deliver the compliance? Do I just want to take, somebody on the team, turn them into a fractional or a virtual CISO because they've got the experience and background, and just add this as another advisory target for them of, hey, all these subcontractors that are trying to figure out what they're going to do, get the initial engagement.
Yeah.
Help them have the business conversation of, do we, crunch the numbers? Do we pursue the work that's needed to hit these CMMC compliances so we can maintain our contracts? Or is the business better off not spending all that money and letting the contracts fall away?
Yeah. So
there's still, there's a space for you there too.
It sounds like lots of paths to revenue and business growth. The few, if I were to kind of generalize those, would be kind of like consulting and advising. So very high level stuff, like here's what you do, ask me questions. There's probably like some design level where you plan for clients or customers. And then there's probably also a mix of these. But the third I was going to mention is like actually integrating, which you alluded to a little bit, like we're doing the work. So pretty interesting. Lewis, I guess at a high level, like how would you advise MSPs to go and like target this opportunity? Let's say somebody wants to be either a C3PAO or to be one of those folks that are integrating. Like what's a good way to get after that?
So first is, first, don't pay for anything first. Out the gate, don't pay for anything. There's all of the base knowledge already exists and it's freely available. Go pull the CMMC assessment guidance. Pull the not just the assessment guides, but also pull the language from the legal implementation. Pull the NIST 800-171 and read through all of it and perform a gap assessment on yourself. Find out what you can and can't do today and figure out what is reasonable and not reasonable for you to achieve over the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years. So, and do that first out the gate before you spend any real money, because that's going to help you figure out, try to help you figure out, can we even in the first place? Have that honest conversation and assessment with yourself of, can we reasonably achieve and deliver these things? Because there is a, if you're a smaller MSP, and I don't want to say boutique MSP, but you know what? You're not looking at merger acquisition. You're 8 people, 10-person MSP. You may not have the bandwidth and the bodies to be able to really do this. And you need to figure that out early before you start putting money into it and figuring out that you can't handle it.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I was just kind of Googling around as you talked here, found a link to the CMMC assessment guide. Good bedtime reading, very long, but there are, obviously lots of other websites that explain, CMMC resources.
And the one that you were just on, this is the first stop. I would, where it says learn more about CMMC resources and FAQ, read anything and everything that's available underneath all of those. That's your homework. That's your starting point. This is the base knowledge you're going to need so you can make good informed decision, business decisions, professional decisions, certification, and skills development decisions off of.
Gotcha. Yeah, this looks like something I'd plug into ChatGPT, to be honest. Awesome. Okay, we've covered some resources. We've talked about CMMC, the opportunities for MSPs. I think we talked a little bit about resources and training. That's what we were just looking at. But let's say you have a junior technician. Like, is what we just showed a good?
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, if you're like, I want to have one of my junior techs investigate this. Yeah, that is absolutely some of the stuff that you would have them look at. for certifications, like, what would be the first certification you would have somebody investigate would probably be either the educator or the registered practitioner would be kind of like the first ones to look at pursuing. But again, even then, as an MSP business, I wouldn't bother doing either one of those until we've already read through all the other stuff and, kind of made the honest assessment of can we.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And I want to talk a little bit about assessment costs and timelines for these level 2 or 3 engagements. Can you give just a ballpark of what that looks like?
Oh yeah, no, this is where you get into why this looks so attractive. Because this represents sizable opportunities a lot of the time. So like a level 2 assessment. So, and this is just the assessment. This is not doing the work to remediate the deficiencies and the gaps that are discovered. This is simply the assessment. That's anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000, depending on the scope of the situation, the scope of what you're looking at. If you walk into a small business and all their CUI and everything they handle is, 2 computers in a locked room, air gapped. That's, that's not even a $15,000. That's a $2,000 assessment, probably $3,000 assessment. But full environments, normal, what you're going to walk into in most situations, that's 15 to 50K, and it's probably going to take anywhere from 4 to 8 months for that assessment. Somebody that's really good, really practiced, and there's already good documentation in the environment. There's an assigned data compliance officer that already runs a program for properly discovering, identifying, marking CUI. That's going to be a much quicker assessment than the business is like, no, we don't have anybody that's marking our CUI. We don't even know what our CUI is. That's going to be an 8-month engagement.
For sure. So it just depends on scope.
And then in level 3, pie in the sky, that's $100,000 or more.
Sure. That's a lot of money, Lewis.
Yeah.
All right. We've gone deep. Probably just a few more questions here. Lewis, I'm sure you've probably seen some organizations working on CMMC and some of these different accreditations and acronyms we've looked at. Are there any kind of common pitfalls or mistakes you see folks stumbling over?
Underestimate. First is kind of actually the same problem or the same challenge most MSPs, most IT professionals stumble over with any type of compliance or any type of certification or standard is the documentation burden involved. This is a drastic shift. It's no longer, we should have documentation because it's good practice and it'll help us out whenever we're looking at things. It's like, no. It must be there. It must be done. If you do not, what kind of risk exposure and liability exposure and potential negligence are you talking about at that point? So that's probably the biggest thing is you can't drop this on your existing team and expect them to do it. Somebody needs to be pulled to the side, given the resources and the appropriate amount of time for this, because it is an appreciatively larger amount of documentation and planning that has to be done.
You're not getting it done in just a week or so.
Right. Yeah. And another thing is you can't treat, and again, same kind of compliance problem in general is this is not a one and done project. This is processes and systems are being implemented and they are being nurtured and taken care of. There is a life cycle on it, and that life cycle is turning over multiple, not once a month, it's multiple times a day of assessments, scans, monitoring, SIM and log collections, and all that other stuff that has to constantly happen, must be constantly monitored, must be constantly auditable. It's not that you have to have somebody 24/7 looking at these things on dashboards and then screens. It's that when you need the information, when you need this proof, when you need the documentation, it's immediately available. And you have what you need from 2 days ago or 8 months ago. And also is waiting too long. Waiting too long to figure out if you're going to do this, because if you're waiting too long to figure out what you're going to do, you're probably haven't been having any conversations with your clients about what they're going to do. Anybody that's been around since the 90s, anybody that's been in IT since the 90s and provided support to medical, there were a lot of small practices and individual, general practitioner doctors in the U.S. where their offices that they closed up because of HIPAA, security rules, and other things, and moved to electronic records and everything, and the new regulations, and big brother telling them what they had to do. There were a lot of doctors that said, "I quit. I'm going to sell my practice, or I'm going to be bought out by a larger medical practice or by a hospital system." And consolidation occurred. And the small individual doctor office is like almost unheard of nowadays. The same thing is going to happen because of CMMC. There are going to be tons of small businesses that make a widget. It's probably just a piece of aluminum that's being milled. But because the blueprints or the CNC files are considered CUI, you have to do all these things. Well, they're a subcontractor, and they don't want to spend the $80,000 to $140,000 it's going to take on this, and then the recurring outlay of cost to keep that up over time. So, their security budget went from $8,000 a year to $40,000, $60,000 a year for a contract that's only earning them $200,000, $300,000 a year. So they're going to exit. They're either going to sell their book of business, they're going to sell they're going to just let it lapse. We're not going to bid on it again, or they're going to sell what they're doing to somebody else that's bigger that can take and handle it. So there's going to be a lot of consolidation of smaller businesses. And again, as an MSP, if you haven't figured out what you're going to do yet, that means you're probably not having the conversation what your clients are going to be doing. And that's unforeseen uncertainty in your future. You don't have vision on what are my clients planning on doing because of this. They may have already made their decision that they're going to sell out. They may have already made their decision that they're not going to bid on that new contract again. And if you're not having that conversation with them, somebody else is having the conversation with them. You're not part of the narrative. And again, decisions are made without your participation. And 8 months from now, your client that's helping you keep the lights on says, well, we're going to drop all of these federal contracts. We're firing half of our employees, and we don't need your services anymore because of it.
Yeah, so definitely a little bit of a warning, something to stay prudent on. Lewis, I think we should wrap up here, but one more, just on CMMC in general. How do you see this kind of influencing broader cybersecurity maturity beyond even the DoD supply chain?
Right. So as the CMMC program matures, and as it becomes, assuming that it continues and it's been implemented and it's yielding results and there's an ecosystem that grows around it and can properly support it, you'll probably start seeing states trying to adopt it or something similar. FedRAMP, any familiarity with FedRAMP for FedRAMP accreditation for cloud services, For a lot of federal contracts, for a lot of regulated things, you have to use FedRAMP accredited services and hosting solutions. There's also a private industry version of that called state ramp, where they're kind of trying to push that down at the state level. If we look back at, NIST controls and NIST publications for, risk management or other things, a lot of, that started up at the federal level, and it was meant to be a resource for the feds, but then the state started using it, and then the state started writing language, and then municipalities and communities just said, you know what, we're not going to try and figure this out. We're just going to point up. We're just going to say, hey, whatever those above us are doing must be good. It must be appropriate for some reason. So we're just going to adopt that. CMMC could follow the same path, and then combine that with pushes for legislative and regulatory actions around the larger MSP business model and industry. You need to be prepared. The heydays of the MSP doing what they want with nobody else looking over your shoulder, telling you what you can or can't do, or should or shouldn't do, or you will be dictated to at some point in the future. As an MSP, regardless of who you're providing support to, there is likely to be regulatory influence coming down the line that's going to dictate how you have to operate your business. And really, it's no different in the current landscape of regulations that dictate how you have to run the money side of your business, and taxes and all that stuff. Is just going to move over now into the technical side of, if you're going to be an MSP and you're going to provide services to the state, guess what? Like with Louisiana, you got to register with the state. That's probably going to, go more out. And then something else will be added of, if you're going to provide services to the state or to a municipality or a public entity, then all of your security configuration data for the environment has to be protected in a certain way, and you have to retain it for 3 months or 6 months, where before they never told you had to retain it. And now all of a sudden you have to find a SIM solution with variable retention policies and figure out how you're going to do that, implement it, manage it, and sell it for a profitable margin.
Lots to keep up with.
Yeah, I am one of those. I think it will happen. It's completely reading tea leaves, though, on when, how, and the scope of it. But don't be surprised, and you should already be starting to plan for it.
All right. Right on. Lewis, we have covered a ton here. I'm really glad you've done your research on CMMC, or the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, because I hadn't, and I learned a ton today. Folks that want to see more of these, you can subscribe to thisisAnITsupportgroup.com to get alerts when we talk with folks like Lewis about some of these things that MSPs, IT organizations should keep up with. Lewis, a little plug for you. Where can folks learn more about either Enable or keep up with you and some of your writings and content that you make?
Yep. So you can always find me out on LinkedIn at The Security Pope. You can catch me on Twitch occasionally doing live coding. No VODs there, but just if you happen to see me, drop in. I'll be coding something. But also at enable.com/events, you can find all of the publicly accessible boot camps, training sessions, office hour sessions that myself or any of the other head nerds are putting on. And those are all freely available to everybody. We don't gatekeep those. So it's a great opportunity to get access to knowledge and information that's, most of the time gate kept behind some type of, a payment portal or some other type of membership thing.
For sure. And I can attest to the quality of Enable's events. Lots of free stuff that folks can get, PhD in operating an MSP, which I think maybe should be a piece of marketing. But Lewis, thank you again so much for dropping by. I guess we'll chat again sometime, I'm sure, on more security happenings. Hope you have a great afternoon.
All right. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. See ya.